little bit easier
Right.
to learn.
Yeah.
So we're all good. Oh, we're
All
live.
right.
We're live. All
We're,
right.
we're live. All
Yes.
right.
We're live and kicking.
Well, I am here with Marcel, Ian, and Robert, and myself, Ron. And we're going to talk about our 5 favorite albums from the year 1984. This was a year that I graduated from high school, so this is kind of I guess, a special year. So since Marcel is new to our group, I will let him go first with his first selection.
All right. Well, pressure's all on me now. I'm going to start with the obvious one because when you invited me for this, and I was like 1984. I was 12 back then. I was into music because I've been all my life, but I wasn't really into bands and just radio. So I discovered albums a lot later. So I went back to look in my collection. What albums do I have from 1984? And I was surprisingly few. So, but the obvious one, being a prog fan, is of course Fugazi by Marillion, the second studio album. There's a lot of glare I see, so just do it like this, right? Yeah. Yeah. What can I say? I'm a huge Marillion fan. Marillion is actually the band that got me into progressive rock in the first place. I had no idea that it existed until someone had a copy of Clutching at Straws in the car, and I borrowed it and I listened to it, and it was like a whole new world of music opened up for me. So Marillion has always been a very important band for me, especially the Fish years. I mean, that's how I got to know them, and yeah, I gotta say, I really love this one. I was playing it today when I was working in the yard, and yeah, there are a couple of songs in it that stand out for me, especially songs like She Chameleon and Incubus. They get some kind of an interesting mood that I really love very much. The way Fish sings them, the whole the keyboards especially, that was a big selling point for me. I love the keyboards. So Mark Kelly was kind of my hero. So yeah, this is definitely one of my absolute favorite albums from 1984. One of the very few I have, but nonetheless, definitely one of my favorites.
Cool.
Good. Me next, Ron.
You're next. Yep.
Okay. In 1984, I was at university, probably my second year of university. Pretty much mainly into heavy metal. Most of my music tastes have changed since then. Similar to Marcel, I had a fairly small collection from 84 and when I went back and checked it, but there were a few standouts there. So my number one is going to be Universe Zero and their album Used. One of the godfathers of the rock and opposition movement, one of the original bands in that movement. This is their 4th album of their original run of 5 before they went on hiatus. It got a little more electric on this version versus the first 3 albums. The first 3 albums were fairly chamber. This one, they swapped out Mikhail Berkman's oboe and bassoon for some saxophone and clarinets, and there's a bit more electric in there, but it's one of their strongest albums in a very strong discography. Pretty much everything they do is good to excellent, and that's probably one of the top 2 or 3 albums they've released.
Wow, wonderful.
Yeah, I like that one too. I found out about them later on.
Yeah, same here. It wasn't until the mid 2000s until I found out about them.
Yeah, I found out because I was on the progressive years back in the early 2000s, and someone kept on talking about it, and I was like going, sounds interesting. So I just blindly bought. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it starts with a C.
Oh, Cœur de Dehors.
Yeah, I got that.
Robert can probably correct me with the French. I'm probably butchering it horribly, but yeah. But they certainly look like a Belgian dark band.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, My turn. My first album I want to discuss is Rush, Grace Under
Mm.
Pressure. Kind of a classic of that era from 1984. It's their 10th studio album, recorded just north from here in late 1983 at Le Studio in Morin Heights, Quebec. It features a more keyboard-driven sound that began with their album Signals. Grace Under Pressure was certified platinum in the US. Among the catchy popular tune that played on the radio at the time, you had the Distant Early Warning, Red Sector A, The Enemy Within, Kid Gloves, Red Lenses. It's a great album. I saw the band at the Montreal Forum during the Grace Under Pressure tour. And through family friend, I even got backstage passes. I didn't need, I didn't meet Neil Peart, but still I got this program signed by all the three
Nice.
amigos, including Neil Peart.
Nice.
It's one of my most precious frog souvenirs of my youth. To you, my friend Ron.
That one actually, when I had a record player way back in that time, I had that on record.
Mm.
And I played that, and my brother was always looking at me like, why you listen to that weird stuff? I said, I like it. That's the simple answer, is I liked it. And so I'm going to go, at this time, I was kind of gradually getting into heavy metal. And one of the first ones that I got into was Queensryche, The Warning. To me, up until a certain point, Rage for Order I thought was their peak, but this was like going there, and it's like great borderline progressive metal. It's more metal than the progressive part, but it was more because of Jeff Tate's vocals. It was more operatic, and it was more dramatic sounding. I mean, it has obviously the lead title, The Warning, and one of my favorite songs on there is Roads to Madness, and it was like kind of like a ballad type, and it's just very dark sounding for a metal band. Usually metal bands were like these. They always talk about girls and cars and stuff like that, and these guys kind of didn't go that direction quite yet, but I did get to see them years later on the Empire tour, and kind of almost a different sounding band at that point, because it's got polish. But right here, if you want something raw but has a little bit of polish to it, I mean, this is one of my favorites of theirs. And this particular one has some bonus tracks, the remastered series from a few years back. So it does sound better than the other mix that they had out originally. So if you like Queensryche and or you're not familiar with the early stuff, this is a good one, to check out, because it's a really good one. That at that time, 84, 85 is when I started getting into the metal scene, and kind of gradually progressed to where I got even more into it. But that's my first selection. So it's back to you, Marcel.
Yeah, it's interesting that you start about how you got into metal, because that reminds me a little bit of how I got into metal. I got into metal before I got into prog, by the way. I had a guy from school, from high school, and he was a guitar player, and he was the kind of guy that like everybody was a little bit scared about. And I remember that he was one day was practicing in school with a couple of guys. He was playing a whole lot of Rosie by AC/DC, and I was not familiar with that yet. And later on, we turned out to be working in the same weekend job. And then after hours, after the shop was closed, he put on some music, and he started to play some metal. And I was not familiar with that. And I came from a kind of a religious background, religious family, so metal was like the devil's music. So I was not listened to. But he knew exactly what to put on, and he started to play "Fade to Black" by Metallica. And I was like, "Wow, is this metal?" Yeah, and of course. Also from 1984, Ride the Lightning from Metallica. This was my very first introduction to the band Metallica, the song Fade to Black. And it was like, I had no idea that metal could sound like that. So I got interested in it and I started to listen a little bit more to it. And in the end, this actually is, together with Master of Puppets, is absolutely this one my favorite Metallica album. I gotta say, this is also kind of my go-to album when I'm kind of feeling depressed because it has a couple of tracks on it, like Fade to Black, like Escape, like Trapped Under Ice, that kind of resonate with me. Like when I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling depressed, those are the songs I put on. I play them loud, and they kind of help me get out of my bad mood and become a better and in a better mood. So yeah, this is because of that memory and because of that introduction to metal. This album has always been special to me. And since I was happy it was from 1984, I figured, all right, I could bring it on because it's an interesting album. And I also noticed that it's heavy, it's fast, but they can also tone it down a little bit. They bring in a lot of melodies with it, and that's what attracted me, especially to the band Metallica and to this kind of metal. So yeah, I found it a very interesting album. I'm still having a copy of it for many years. I kind of wish I had it on vinyl though. That would be nice, but maybe one day. But for now, this is my second choice, Ride the Lightning by Metallica.
Good.
Yeah, that's actually my first one I got into. My friend in late '85 got me into all that thrash metal stuff, and that was one of the first bands that it kind of I got attracted to the most. And then when the next one came out, Master of Puppets, came out in the store, I bought it just blindly, just bought it when it not on release day, but on that year,
Auto buys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's good. It's a good one. It's a good choice.
Yeah. Although the funny thing is, when it comes to metal, thrash metal, I never really moved on from Metallica. I always stick with them and didn't venture out to any other bands. Well, one band, Annihilator, that I also got a couple of albums from them. But apart from that, I didn't really listen to the music. So kind of funny that I just stuck with that.
Right.
Ian.
Okay, for number 2, I'm going with Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Mr. Drake. Bit of a mouthful of a title, and it's the band name. It's a side project from Tim Smith of Cardiacs. He put together a 3-person band, him and his then wife, Sarah Smith, who was in Cardiacs playing saxophone, and William D. Drake, who was the keyboardist in Cardiacs. So it's a 3-piece subset of that band. It's a bit more folky, a little less frenetic, a little less punk than the Cardiacs material. Still very song-based. The songs are all split pretty much half and half between Tim and William Drake in terms of the writing credits. They changed the name of the band after this album. This was the first one they released. They became the Sea Nymphs after that and released another couple of albums later on under those names. But if you're into the Cardiacs quirky vibe, but you want a little more folky sort of sound to it, this is a pretty good place to start with. Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Mr. Drake.
Excellent. Cardiacs is always great to see.
A great band.
It's got a great
one
sound.
of my favorite bands. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, my turn. All right. A bit more Canadian content. Here's April Wine, Animal Grace. That's an album from 1984. It's their 11th studio album from the Halifax-based band. They did settle in Montreal for a short while in the early 70s, and they actually got their start there. The album featured a few modest hits, including "This Could Be the Right One," which played a lot on the radio, and "Sons of the Pioneers," but it kind of failed to reach the success of the previous monster albums, "Nature of the Beast" and "Harder, Faster." The band released one more studio album in 1985, and then they took a break until 1993. And sadly, the soul of the band, Miles Goodwin, passed away suddenly last December due to complications from diabetes. But the band still tours with the original member, Brian Greenway, along with Richard Lantier, a friend of mine, Roy Nickel, and Marc Parent on vocals. Some might know Richard Lantier. He was also a member of the band Close to the Edge. It was a Yes tribute that featured Benoit David on vocals, who became briefly the lead singer of Yes at the suggestion of Richard to Chris Squire. There you go. Ron?
Yeah, I heard some of their songs on that, really good, solid rock music, and yeah, it was sad that the guy passed away, and before he passed away, I think he was because of having diabetes, he was very outspoken about it and trying to educate people on that. And it's sad that it takes that to happen to educate. You know,
It is true.
Well, I'm going to continue in metal. I'm going to go to Power Slave.
Oh, yes.
This is my all-time favorite Iron Maiden album.
Agreed.
Start to finish, and with the closer, Rime of the Ancient Mariner. I mean, I heard that, and I'm like, they could, you know, how it was 13 minutes, and it didn't feel like it. It was the first time that I ever, in metal, they were telling a really good story. I mean, I was really involved in it, and it's just it's had like a little mythology to it, you know, about, you know, you don't kill the albatross, you know, because it gives you bad luck. And I also like the Power Slave. That one, it had kind of a quirky vibe to it. You know, it wasn't like, that's the one thing I noticed with Iron Maiden is they were never honestly a straightforward metal band. They always had some quirkiness to it, even in their shorter songs. You know, it's like, and of course it has Aces High, one of their classics, and 2 Minutes at Midnight. And there was one song, Flash of the Blade, that it was so funny. I was watching this horror movie called, it was called Creepers here in the United States. And all of a sudden in the soundtrack, Flash of the Blade starts going on. I'm like, going,
that's cool.
And it was, whoever decided to put, it was like they had them, they had some, I think they had some other metal bands in there. And it was so out of place in the movie. It just didn't, it was almost like someone said, well, we need to kind of draw the young audience, so let's just put some of these bands in there. But this one for me, for the last century was their pinnacle. I mean, and then this century they keep on expanding on, you know, the progressiveness of this. Some people don't like a lot of it, you know, because they're like, that was a 13-minute song. That was their longest to date. And I think also there was was nothing longer until the 2000s. Now they got 20-minute songs and stuff like that, 18-minute songs.
It was proggy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like, I mean, it wasn't like overtly, like any prog that we heard at that time. I mean, what's his name? Steve Harris was a big prog fan, so that helped, and that. But that's my number 2 pick for 1984.
Certainly on my short list. I was hugely into them in my teenage years. Mainly Number of the Beast and the 2 albums, the first 2 albums, Iron Maiden and Killer. Well, they were a bit more punky, than metally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
all right, back to you, Marcel.
Is it my turn already?
yes.
Already.
All right. Well, going for number 3, I'm going for a bit of a nostalgia with Talk Talk.
Yes.
Yeah, amazing album, also from 1984. Actually, I bought this album. It's really nostalgia. I remember being a young boy with my grandparents, watching television, seeing the videos there, and saw videos from Talk Talk there. And I can't remember exactly which song, but I said Mark Hollis, and he made a real impression on me when I was a young kid. So I kind of bought it because of the singles. Dum Dum Girl, Such a Shame, and It's My Life. Those are the 3 songs I knew, and I figured, all right, I'm going to buy this album, and at least I have those songs. But while listening to the album, I really started to appreciate the rest of the songs as well, the lesser known songs, not the hits. And that's something I in general, when I got older, I found out that hits are great, but there's so much more to discover in bands, and that's what I like it when you buy, like me, an album because of the hits, and then you hear the rest what the band does, and then you get a lot more appreciation for the music, for the band, and it starts to grow. So I gotta say, this is now I put on very regularly because I absolutely love it, all of it. Yeah, and nice that nostalgia can finally lead to discovering more music from a band. So my number 3 pick, It's My Life, Talk Talk.
Their next album, Spirit of Eden, is an absolute masterpiece. Best thing they ever released. Absolutely stunning album.
And Mark Hollis did also a solo album that was.
Yeah, solo album is excellent. Yeah.
Okay, I gotta see if I can find that. I'm interested in that. I gotta get that other Talk Talk album as well. I've heard about it. More stories that it's really amazing album. I never got around to buying it, but unfortunately, my to buy list is pretty huge.
Oh yeah, I think
we all.
Yeah.
I got to see Talk Talk on that tour.
Oh wow, nice.
But I didn't go because of them. The other band that was on the list, on the bill, Berlin. I went because of them.
Yeah.
And that was a nice show. It was when I was still living in the Los Angeles area, and a place called the Greek Theater. It was an open amphitheater, and it was really nice. That was the one and only concert I saw there. And
yeah,
I know a lot of other cool bands played there too. I think I want to say Yes played there, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, I never got the Talk Talks CDs except I think I have the one that the next one, Spirit of Eden.
Spirit of Eden. Yeah.
I think I have that one. I think I have that one.
I would get the next one after it as well. Those 2 are the 2 really strong ones, Spirit of Eden and the one that followed it.
Or is it like those 3?
3. They did 3. Yeah, they did 3 in a row. And they were all in a similar style, and it was a very different style from everything they did before that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good choice.
They were like early post-punk guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up for me, this is News from Babel. Don't know if you know the band. They're a spin-off from Henry Cow. When Henry Cow fell apart, they became Art Bears and released 2 or 3 excellent albums under the name Art Bears, and then they evolved again after that and became News from Babel. So this is essentially the 3rd iteration of Henry Cow. The name of the title, the album title, is rather a mouthful. It's Sirens and Silence, Work Resumed on the Tower. Side 1 is Sirens and Silence. Side 2 is Work Resumed on the Tower. If you know anything about Henry Cow, the 3 main Henry Cow players on this are Lindsay Cooper on bassoon, Chris Cutler the drummer, and Dagmar Krause singing. In the Art Bears, Fred Frith was also in the band, but when he left and they became News from Babel, they brought in Zena Parkins, New York City-based harp player. It's all of the music is in a very similar Henry Cow, Art Bears, avant-garde, dissonant, edgy rock music, lots of clashing sounds, interesting lyrics, quite abrasive vocals from Dagmar, but continued the excellent run of albums from Henry Cow offshoots following on after the dissolution of the band. So that's mine. News from Babel and Sirens and Silence, Work Resumed on the Tower from 1984.
Excellent.
Interesting.
Right. Back to me. My 3rd album is Depeche Mode.
Oh, wow.
Great Reward. That's the 4th studio album from that British electro-pop band. This album sees the band near its peak. Literally, it was released right in the middle of the electro-pop era with Gary Newman, Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, Human League, Soft Cell. They were pretty much at their top. I feel they really found their sound on this disc with a couple of highly popular singles like People Are People. Somebody, Master and Servant. It sounds great as hell. You can listen to it, in its entirety. It's wonderful. And I feel it aged gracefully over the past 40 years. So here I am. Back to you, Ron.
All right. Well, I'm gonna echo Marcel on one of his picks. This is that little book that has 3 discs and the 4th disc is a Blu-ray. It has all sorts of extra audio tracks, some video.
The whole package.
This wasn't my first Marillion. The first one was the next one because of MTV. They kind of brought me in, and then I have I think Marcel, is yours the 24-bit one that
I don't think so. I bought. Now this is the. I think this is the one from 1984. I bought this a long time ago. This is not a remaster.
I have the one that back, I think in the 90s, they remastered them, and on the spine, each from the first album up, spelling Marillion on M and then A and so on. And I got this one, and there's a big difference. The only thing that it doesn't have some of the extras that the other one have, so I'm keeping that. But normally, if I upgrade to something, I always get rid of the original because after a while, I want something that sounds fresh. And this one, it's like kind of saying, the song Punch and Judy, every song had like a little punch to it. I mean, and it, and Fish's vocals were so like aggressive, and this was kind of like in a way, kind of like an angry album. And kind of, I think people that would like the more edgy, maybe punk stuff would like to hear something like this. Um, and it's got this really nice, got the 2 discs. They got a live discs and that, and then the second one, you got the Blu-ray, and then another live disc. And
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
I only got the first 2 albums like this. I really want to get Misplaced Childhood like this, and then and probably the one after, but they're going for too much money. They go. These things go out of print so quickly. So if you don't catch it from the first time that they're on sale, even not even a year later, they're already up into the $70s and $80 range. And it's insane. I mean, I'm not that big of a fan. But that is my number 3.
I am that big of a fan of Marillion, but I don't have the money for these luxurious ones. But I would love to have them. I would love to have them because they look very cool, and especially with the live discs and everything. Yeah, it might be worth it, but maybe.
Well,
maybe one day.
When I got them, these were $40.
Yeah,
which is not bad. Basically
that's not bad for all that.
disc.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But 8 when it gets past that is a little much for me.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go with my 4th, which is the YouTube friendly version of the pros and cons of hitchhiking by Roger Waters. It's not by that I wanted to. I prefer to have the original one. You can hopefully see it behind me. I have the vinyl. The vinyl is the not safe for a YouTube version. Yeah. I kind of discovered Roger Waters by chance. I was in my 20s. I was visiting it with a friend. And suddenly, they put on some music, and I was listening to it. And I was like, okay, what is this? It sounds interesting. It turns out it was Amused to Death by Roger Waters. And I knew Pink Floyd, but I didn't know any Roger Waters solo work. So I decided to look into that. And I got a copy of Amused to Death, and I liked it. So I figured, okay, what does the guy have more? And well, this is his sort of debut album. I mean, let's be honest, the Final Cut from Pink Floyd is pretty much a solo album by Roger Waters. So I don't see this particularly but it is the first one with his name on it. So, but I really like it. I like the atmosphere in it. It's very bluesy. I mean, of course, he has Eric Clapton on guitars on this one, so playing a very prominent role. So I love the guitar work in it. But I kind of like the whole. That's what I like about Roger Waters, the whole dramatics. It's like you're kind of listening to a play when I listen to his music, and that's mainly what I like about him. I kind of like his singing, the way he kind of acts on it. We have David Sanborn on saxophone. I kind of like saxophone and music very much, so that's a big plus for me. Yeah, a lot of other people involved. Also, the backup singers that also did a lot with Pink Floyd are on it. They create that extra vibe. I always enjoyed that with Pink Floyd, that they had these backup singers, and well, he's using them as well. So yeah, I really like this album very much. To be honest, it's not my favorite Waters album. That might still be Amused to Death. Yeah, Radio Chaos is somewhere in between. I like that one as well. But yeah, this is the only one I also have on vinyl. So I like it. My pick number 4.
I saw that tour. Saw it at Wembley Stadium, I think, somewhere in London. It was very good. Clapton was excellent, and it was very dramatic. The whole thing was a show, as all the Waters shows are. It was very good.
Yeah, that's a kind of his thing. I mean, you saw that
his thing.
With Pink Floyd with The Wall, with the Final Cut, So it's kind of dramatic, but that's what I like about it. So yeah.
Okay, my 4th one is going to be Nazca. They're a Mexican chamber rock band. So if you're into Universe Zero, Art Zoid, Present type of chamber rock, dark, heavy, somber rock music using chamber instruments, this is a Mexican band who plays that style of music. So
Excellent.
I think they only released 2 or 3 albums, but it's a particularly good example of chamber rock in that type of genre. So Nazca, nothing much else to say about it. Always scratches the itch for me whenever I put it on. Think of Universe Zero, think of Art Zoid in Mexico.
There you go.
Excellent. That's very
Sounds
cool.
good.
All right. My fourth album. Oh, that's a classic. That is a classic. Simple Minds.
Oh wow, you've
Sparkling
gone
in the
pop today.
Rain.
You've definitely gone pop today, Bob.
James Kerr from Scotland. Sorry about the Scottish accent. It's their sixth studio album. It's the album that followed the monumental New Gold Dream album. Building on their success, the band tried to move away from their pure new wave style with a sound that was a little bit more muscular, a little bit more commercial, a little bit more arena rock, and dare I say, a little bit more pop. Something to satisfy, the big crowds who went to see their shows and the record executives. Don't forget, this band is the same group that would write the main piece to the Breakfast Club soundtrack a year later. Their sound had a bit of a resemblance to bands like U2 and Big Country at that point. It was #1 on the charts and platinum in England and gold in Canada. So, on the album, we find a very, very powerful piece, Waterfront, probably the most energetic song of the band, which clearly highlights the band's new drummer, Mel Gaynor. There's also Speed Your Love to Me and Up on the Catwalk. Steve Lillywhite produced this album and gave it an impeccable, rich, precise sound. Funny story about Steve Lillywhite. He started working on Rush, Grace Under Pressure, but then said, "Oh, I don't have time to do that. I'm working on the Simple Minds album." So he left, and actually Rush did the production of the album by themselves. So that's it.
Oh yeah, they had a lot of hits, especially on MTV. Some kind of pseudo live things where and they always interest me, but now I know where to start. That sounds like a good starting point.
It is.
Yeah, definitely.
Now-
Love Simple Minds very much. It's an amazing band. But I gotta be honest, I kind of listened to them in the 80s, early 90s, and after that, I kind of lost track of them. So, yeah, I only know the older material from them, nothing more recent. I believe they're still active, if I'm not
They are.
mistaken.
Yep.
We are.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I haven't heard any.
Oh, I
any of
gotta
them.
say so. I gotta say something to you, Ian. Kevin was shocked when you said. I think you said something that you liked Marillion.
No, I didn't. I did not say I like Marillion. I booed Marillion at Reading Rock Festival in 1982 or 1983 when they were doing Script for the Jester's Tears.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So they're not on my list.
Okay, so Kevin. All right, my number 4 is a band that Palace. They got
Palace.
signed to EMI, and they were basically for a short time were label mates with Marillion. And based on this album, the way in its corrected song lineup should have catapulted them into the same success that Marillion had, at least with Fish. It should have done that, but there was a lot of things. They even had Eddie Orford producing them. And I read an article that basically said, great producer, big misstep. He did, and the EMI was had a totally different set list of their songs, because there's what they call the Atlantis suite. After the second song, this whole suite of songs, it was about Atlantis, but it was also a mirror of like the Cold War situations. And if you go and listen to songs like East West, it mirrors how the world is today, you know, and they just kind of completely messed up their the song list. They in that same article, the band wished that they would have re-recorded some of the stuff that was on the live album they put out before Arrive Alive, that they would do studio versions of that. And I kind of wish they did, because they have a great song, The Ripper. And The Ripper was, they got in a lot of trouble for that. I mean, you can go see on YouTube, they have current, well, not current, but maybe 10, 15 years ago, they brought back the original singer to do a couple of the older songs, and he did The Ripper. And The Ripper was about, there was, at that time, there was the Yorkshire Ripper.
Yeah, the Yorkshire Ripper, yes.
It was based on that, and it was unsettling. I mean, but this thing here is like, it's like, has a sci-fi feel. I mean, look, the cover almost has like a Yes feel, but it wasn't done by Roger Dean. It was some other guy. But there's a good article about this, and a lot of the fans on the Palace Facebook thing want them to get that lineup back just to do a tour. But I think the original singer, Ewan, I think he's just retired from the whole thing. But that was my first entry into them, and I didn't get into them until the late 90s. And especially, this was one of the promo copies. You can see the little cutout.
Yeah.
Inside Out sent me all of their stuff up to one called Beat the Drum or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that. And I don't even know why they sent it to me. And I was like going, well, listen to it. And it was like, it's great. I wish that they would do like a box like this, maybe get some things together for a big package, you know, a 40th anniversary. That's just as special as a 50th and 60th. You know, it's like, it's a milestone right there. And it doesn't really feel like it's been 40 years. It really doesn't. So that's my fourth pick.
Well, Alan Reed is back in the band, so it's
Yes.
kind of a cool thing.
It is.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I gotta say, I've been listening to The Messenger quite a bit. I gotta say, I like it. The only shame is that they don't have a real drummer. They have programmed drums, and they're okay. I mean, the guys who programmed the drums did a good job, but a real drummer would have made the album even better than it already is. But I gotta say, it's an amazing album, definitely.
Oh yeah. Some people thought maybe it was like a sequel to this, but they said no, because it had a kind of a different message about the whole thing. I think that this one had a little kind of that 80s optimism and also fear of what was to come, and I think on The Messenger it kind of like said, yeah, it happened.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So you're up for you.
All right. The last one. I'm gonna end with a big one. I gotta. I mean, we're talking 1984, and we're talking, of course, Prince,
Oh,
Prince and the Revolution, Purple Rain.
totally.
I mean, come on, this is an amazing album. Over the past years, have become a huge Prince fan. I think he's more represented in my CD collection than any other musician or band. I have about 150 plus CDs from him, which is
Wow.
a lot of bootlegs, a lot of bootlegs, a lot of live stuff. But this album is definitely very special to me. I got it in several versions. I got several live versions. I don't have it on tape. That's the only version I don't have, I think. But I have a VHS of the concert, the Syracuse concert 1985, which is amazing. But you know, Purple Rain itself, I mean, it's officially a soundtrack, of course. I always thought it was just an album because it never, nowhere you can see that it says soundtrack. But it is the soundtrack, of course, to the movie Purple Rain, which I also definitely love. And you see a young Prince. I mean, I think he was like 23 or something when he created this. It's like he was a young kid and he made such an amazing album, and it showcases not only the songwriting, but I mean it's been played uh, till death, of course, just like Marillion's Kaylee, the song Purple Rain. But if you listen to the guitar on it, it is wow. It is, I close my eyes and just dream away with it. But from start to finish, I love this one very much. It has, of course, the hit and the lesser tracks. But from not the hits, I gotta say, "Take Me With You" and "The Beautiful Ones" are my favorite tracks from this album. Well, "Computer Blue" as well. I also have the remastered version, which they include several of the Volt tracks in it, which has like a 14-minute version of Computer Blue in it, which is how he intended it. And I gotta say that's an amazing track. But even without the Volt tracks, just the original album is simply stunning. What can I say more?
Fabulous album indeed. I've got it on vinyl.
It's
There as
right
well.
there.
Right there,
Right
yeah,
there,
I see
right
it.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. For my fifth one, I don't have the original album cover as I have it on a compilation, but I'm going with Thinking Plague and their debut album, A Thinking Plague. It came out in 1984 and Cuneiform re-released it as a double album with the second album, Moon Songs, is the way that I've got it. Thinking Plague out of Denver, Colorado, one of the pillars of the avant rock scene over the last few decades, originally formed by Mike Johnson and Bob Drake, had a fairly extensive cast of characters rolling through the band. Dave Kerman was in the band at one stage, of various other bands as well, including Present. It's a little raw compared to their later works. It's a little out there in terms of the experimentation. I think they were still pretty much finding their way when they put it together, but it has all of the hallmarks of the dissonant vocals, the edgy guitar, the bouncy songs. It's a fun debut album from Thinking Plague, A Thinking Plague.
Excellent. All right. Down to my very last album. Scorpions.
Oh, yeah.
Love at First Sting. That album was officially the true consecration of this band as one of the biggest metal groups in the world. Love at First Sting peaked at number 6 on the Billboard 200 and was triple platinum in the United States. It features the monster radio hit "Rock You Like a Hurricane."
Yeah.
Big City Nights, Crossfire, Still Loving You. It's just a fantastic album. It doesn't sound like a 40-year-old album. I listened to it and it's still fresh and, energetic and stuff. It's a true classic of the year 1984. Some of the songs on that album found their way on this great live album a year later. So that concludes my list.
I'm
Ron?
pretty much like the three before that one. The peak for me was Blackout, Animal, Magnetism, and Love Drive were the three
Yeah.
Scorpion albums that resonate best with me versus Love at First Sting. I think they went a bit more popular on the Love at First Sting side
Oh,
of it.
absolutely.
But yeah,
Only on one song because the rest of the
yeah,
album is kind of a bit eclectic.
yeah. But yeah, great band, wonderful band.
Mhm.
All right. My final pick is another one of those 80 neo prog bands, 12th Night and Art and Illusion.
You've gone very neo today.
Yeah. Well, that was the time for me.
That was, yeah.
This was, I don't know how many singers at this point, because they had, I mean, the most popular one was Jeff Mann, and then the second one, Andy Sears. But they had a few before Jeff, but they never really recorded albums. They were more in a live capacity. I mean, the 12th Night has since released a lot of archive live stuff, kind of bootleg quality. But this one here, it's really good. I found out about them again. I got the previous one, Fact and Fiction, which had Jeff Mann, and that was like a raw version of the neo sound. I mean, it kind of edgy. I mean, it's I want to say out of all of those bands that came around, they were the most progressive sounding. But when Jeff left and Andy came in, they kind of got a little more polished. I mean, still, when they do on the second disc, it has a lot of live stuff. When they do some of the older tracks, very dramatic. You know, Andy's voice is as dramatic as Jeff's, but in a different way. And of course, Jeff, he in the early '90s passed away. I believe it was brain cancer. And those, I'll tell you, out of those '80s neo prog bands, my two ultimate favorites are this one, 12th Night, and IQ. Those are the two that. And I kind of wish. I mean, they didn't have one in '84 because they jumped the year. So, but this had a kind of a little more new wave kind of a vibe going to it. I mean, if you look at some of the pictures of the band, you know, they had that, you know, the big poopy-ish hair, you know, kind of like I call it the new wave mullet, where it's long in the back, but it's not like you know, like it got cropped up on the top. It's like it's kind of long at the top. They just got it short on the sides, and it's like they're just putting out. It was this double album, and it's the definitive edition. I like when bands do that, because then later on they put out another
definitive edition 5 years later.
You know, yeah, like I'll tell you who did that. King Crimson. I think they did that at least 3 times on their stuff. You know, the original, then there was a definitive, and then a 30th anniversary, then a 40th. You know, it's like, I get it. You know, don't keep on putting out the same stuff. I mean, if you're gonna put out,
they got people wanting to buy it. If there's people still buying it, they'll still sell it to them.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and also too, for the people that miss it the first time around, you know, that's perfect. But this is a good one. I mean, I believe 12th Night has all of their stuff now on a definitive edition, 2-disc sets. You know, they got some bonus tracks with demos, and then the live stuff. really good band. If you like the neo stuff and want something a little more edgier, that's one to check out.
Totally. Well,
All right.
that was a wonderful evening.
Yeah, we did it. We did it in pretty good record
good.
time, I'd say.
Oh, 2 hours.
I think it was a great year. There's so much more stuff out there, that to check out in 1984. If you don't know a lot of the stuff other than what we just discussed, go to your Google and just type in 1984 rock albums or prog albums or pop albums or whatever, and you find a big long list of stuff. And
It was
just
a fruitful year, that's for sure.
yeah,
Definitely.
and I got to thank all of you for joining us. Marcel, thank you for being the first time, and hopefully you could come back for another one.
Yeah, will be nice. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Yes.
First time I've done a live stream for music, so yeah, it was nice.
It's been,
and then of course we got Ian. We got Ian that he always counterbalances the melodic stuff with.
I'll bring you all the avant.
Yeah, he brings. He
That's
might
my
as well
wheelhouse.
call himself. He might as well call himself Mr. Avant.
That's my area.
Yeah.
but it's
cool.
amazing stuff.
Yes. So
Well, good.
I thank you guys again.
It's
Thank
been
you very
a pleasure.
much.
It was fun.
Thank you, Ron, to be in your company, my friend.
Talk to you later.
All right. Thank you. I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right.
Have a good evening, all.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.